Hello everyone and welcome to another incredible game from round 7 of this year's Superbet Chess Classic. It is Alireza Firouzja versus the former World Chess Championship challenger Nepomniachtchi, who already suffered 2 losses in this tournament. He lost to Fabian to MVL, and okay, Alireza lost his first round game to Wesley So, but he is the first person to ever defeat the new classical world champion Ding Liren in a classical game. So yeah, he definitely has that going for him. And it's a really wild game. It's completely out of nothing, something spectacular happens, and one of the players makes it look like it's nothing, like it's a walk in the park. So you'll see very quickly what I mean by this. Alireza has the white pieces, and he opens with pawn to d4. And yes, we are going to show the standings, so don't worry. We have knight to f6 by Nepo, knight to f3, d5, and now pawn to e3. The call system or the call system, I don't know what's the precise way to pronounce it. I think it's actually the call system. Pawn to c5, and now bishop to e2. This is extremely rare. This is like the 6th most popular continuation, and it's just as Alireza said after the game in an interview, it's a nothing move. It's nothing. You just play it and you play chess. You know, no hidden agenda here. Knight to c6. We have castles, and now just bishop to g4 by Nepo. Pawn to h3 and bishop to h5. We have d captures on c5 and pawn to e6 preparing to take back on c5. So a3 preparing b4, bishop captures, and now pawn to b4. Alireza is one of the players that understands the importance of the early b4. We have bishop back to d6 and now knight b to d2. And there is a game where pawn to a5 was played. David Anton Guijarro played it against Andrei Volokitin in their 2021 game. But here we have queen to e7 by Nepo, and it is now as of move 10 that we have a completely new game. So look at this, bishop to b2, and now rook to d8. Okay, just developing pieces. Pawn to c4. Nepo plays d captures on c4, and Alireza goes queen to a4. So okay, there's no way to actually defend the c4 pawn, so you will recapture at some point. But now Nepo says, all right, but you will recapture it under my terms. He plays pawn to c3. Bishop captures on c3. This sort of dislodges the bishop from b2, which is a natural square. The bishop might be a bit more vulnerable on c3, so it's a very natural move to play. Castles, and now knight to c4. Just going after the bishop on d6. We have knight to e4 going after that bishop on c3. You can see how Nepo uses this bishop to remaneuver the knight all the way to g5. We have bishop back to b2 and now knight to g5, threatening to mess up Alireza's pawn structure in front of the king. But that's exactly what Alireza allows. Pawn to b5, attacks the knight on c6. First knight captures on d6, and now bishop captures on f3. We have bishop captures on f3, knight captures on f3, g captures on f3, queen captures on d6, and now rook f to d1. Not that b5 move that I've mentioned for some reason. Queen to c7, and now rook captures on d8. We have rook captures on d8, and only now pawn to b5. That's what I meant, actually. And now look at this. Knight goes to e7, and just queen captures on a7. So Alireza allows his pawn structure in front of the king to get all messed up to win a pawn on the queen side. And now if he can get those pawns up the board, he will at some point create a pass pawn. Now it's not a lot, and if he can survive the attack, well, definitely nice. And it's a question. Okay, you don't really have time to go for some sort of a rook lift and for a nice attack with the knight and queen due to the back rank issues. But if you manage to play, and okay, you don't want to overlook the bishop, if you manage to create some breathing room for the king, maybe you can start an attack here. So here, knight to f5 by Nepo. Rook to c1 goes after the queen. We have queen to d7, and now queen to c5 defends the pawn and also prepares to advance the a pawn, create a pass pawn, and try to push for a win here. We have h6 by Nepo, and now pawn to a4. We have rook to a8. Now the breathing room has been created. You can move the rook from the back rank. Queen to b4 defends everything, prepares pawn to a5. We have queen to d3 now. Going for queen to e2 to capture that f3 pawn, and just pawn to a5 by Alireza. And look at this. Here, incredible as it is, you have to play pawn to f6. But it's such an ugly move to play, and pawn to f6 pretty much always loses you the game, except when it's the strongest move to play. Then you should play it. And here, Nepo should definitely play it. But he played queen to e2. He overlooked the dangers that lurk beneath the actual surface. And here comes pawn to a6 by Alireza. threatening to create a pass pawn. And now the problem is if you capture, pawn captures here, then look at this, pawn to b6, and now how are you defending? If rook to b8, just b7, and rook to c8 will end the game. That's pretty much it. So that's why after this pawn to a6 move, Nepo played queen captures on f3, and now it's a little bit different. So feel free to pause the video and try to find the only winning move for Alireza while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on going for the dullest move possible, but also the most exciting one. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is queen to g4. Yes, the winning move is to offer a queen trade. As disgusting as that sounds, I know it doesn't sound nice, but look at this. Now there's no move for black. Obviously, you know that why f6 was so important. It cuts off the bishop, and now you are threatening checkmate. Not really. You are threatening, let's say, well, if you, let's say you trade queens, which was not played in the game. What happens if you trade queens? Where does the knight go? Does the knight have any squares? Let's say you go to knight to d6, bishop to e5, and black resigns. There's really no playing this. Once the bishop moves, you play captures. Let's say pawn captures here. The b8 square is defended. You resign this. So no point in trying that. But even that was probably Nepo's best chance of maybe still continuing the game if he wants. But he knows this is lost. So he tries queen to d5. This involves a piece sacrifice, but at least maybe you allow the game to continue. But now pawn to e4. Attacks the queen, attacks the knight. And of course, the queen has to move. Queen captures on b5, and now the bishop on b2 is hanging. And now Alireza could defend it. He could very easily close the game here with rook to c2. Point is now that, okay, you can't move the knight, otherwise you're getting checkmated. So you have to play something like rook captures on a6, but now e captures on f5, and that's pretty much it. For example, pawn to e5 closes the diagonal, queen to g3, you're up a bishop, there's not much to worry about here, easily winning. Alireza goes for a different line. He plays bishop to a1, which is kind of similar, but it allows Nepo to prolong the game by quite a lot. And what I mean by this is now queen captures on a6. Of course, the knight cannot move. E captures on f5, removing the defender of the g7 pawn. Now queen captures on g7 is the threat of checkmate. Queen captures on a1. This is Nepo's plan, and now he will try to go for a fortress. Rook captures on a1. Rook captures on a1 with check. King to g2, and now e captures on f5. Queen captures on f5, and now rook to a6, and now Nepo is up 2 pawns, and of course he will try to create some sort of a fortress, but the problem is there's no way to defend the b pawn and the f pawn. At some point, either you're going to check the king, he's going to have to go to h7, and you're going to win this pawn, or you're going to win this pawn, or even if you move the pawn here, then the rook will be too vulnerable because you will be able to check the king from, you know, pretty much the entire board. So here pawn to h4 by Alireza, and now pawn to g6, attacking the white queen. It's pointless. Like I said, if you defend this pawn, then at some point this pawn becomes weak. I can even give you an example like rook to b6. You're going to play h5. Now rook to g6 is no longer an option. Rook to b2. Now you're going to play queen to e5. You're going to harass the black rook, and once the rook moves, you're going to play queen to e8 with check. King h7 captures on f7. So you give up that pawn. So you have to decide which pawn you want to give up. So pawn to g6 was played. Now comes queen to c8 with check. King to g7, and now pawn to h5. Not rushing it with captures, because then Nepo might even create some sort of a fortress with h5. So pawn to g5, and now queen to c4. Again, not rushing it, but simply not allowing the pawn to move. So rook to e6, and now queen to c3 with check. King h7. Queen to f3, now attacking the pawn here, but also the f7 pawn. So king to g8 defending, and only now queen captures on b7. We have king to g8, and now king to g3. And now you will see what the problem is. Look at this. King to g8, we have queen to d5. King to g7. Nepo is hoping to just repeat king g8, king to g7, but here comes king to g4. We have rook to a6, and now queen to c4, not allowing any checks along the fourth rank, and also just keeping the queen centralized. We have rook to d6, now comes queen to c5, attacks the rook, rook to e6, and now queen to d4 with check, forcing the king to go to the back rank, or if king to h7, Then you go king to f5, doesn't really matter. So king to g8, we have king to f5, and now you can see that the f6 square is covered by the queen, and there are no pawns. You cannot keep that square defended, and the g6 square is covered by the pawn. So those are the squares that the black rook cannot use. So you have to move the rook somewhere else. Rook to a6. Queen to c4 now, again, attacks the rook. We have rook to d6, and now queen to c5. And now the rook has to abandon the 6th rank. That's the problem. There's no good square for the rook. If you go something like rook to a6, then queen to here check picks up the rook. So instead, we have rook to d3. Now comes king to f6. We have rook to f3 with check. King to e7, and now rook to f4. We have queen to c8 with check, king to g7, and queen to f8 with check. We have king to h7, and now, of course, the move you are expecting. Queen captures on f7 with check. Alireza makes it look almost too easy, but of course, on their level, this is how you win queen versus rook. Rook captures on f7. We have king captures on f7, and he was in this position on move 58 that Jan Nepomniachtchi resigned the game, and a wonderful, wonderful victory for Alireza Firouzja, who takes down not only world champion Ding Liren, but also former world champion championship challenger Jan Nepomniachtchi. Now here, okay, the material is equal, but of course black will lose all the pawns very quickly. Problem is, if you play g4, then just king f6 and you will gobble up the pawns. Now if push, then pawn captures. If you move the king, of course you go after this pawn, then you're gonna win this pawn as well, win both of the pawns, and then just advance your past pawns. And if you don't do that, if you try something like king to h8, then king g6 immediately gobbles up the pawns, and it's a very easy victory. So it's really a weird game where after this pawn to c3 move, which is basically the absolute best move, Nepo played pretty much all the best moves, completely neutralized Alireza's attack, even messed up his pawn structure here in front of the king. Okay, for the price of one pawn, nothing spectacular. And then in the end here, after we've reached this position, he played queen to e2. He should have played f6 and, you know, nullified this dark square bishop a little bit, and then the game continues. Okay, nothing spectacular. You don't have a6. You're not going to be creating a pass pawn that quickly. The game will still be played. Of course, white will still be pushing, but you have to play f6 here. So perfectly played, but missing f6, going for queen to e2, completely missing the idea, and then allowing this. I mean, once queen to g4 was played, the game was over. So I mean, it's move 30, and another brilliancy by Alireza. So I mean, it is no wonder Magnus wanted to face him for the title. Now you see why. Even after being away from classical chess for so long, he just, you know, destroys both Ding and Nepo. Absolutely amazing. And here are the standings after 7 rounds of this year's Superbet Chess Classic. Fabi and Alireza are sharing first place. Then we have a 3-way tie: Wesley Soanishgiri and Richard Rapport with 4 points, with 3.5 Maxim Vachier-Lagrave, with 3 Jan Krzysztof Duda, Jan and Ding with 2.5 points, sharing 7th, 8th and 9th place, and Bogdan Daniel Deak in last place with 2 points. So definitely not their event. Of course, you're wondering maybe they should have, you know, set this one out. It's too quickly to play a game, tournament so quickly after the World Chess Championship match. But as they are a part of the Grand Chess Tour, they are already enrolled, regardless of how the World Chess Championship ends. So of course they will be playing, and it doesn't seem like they have all that much World Chess Championship preparation leftovers. So you know, we'll see, or maybe they're just tired. It's hard to say. But yeah, that's the game. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Absolute masterclass by Alireza. So really hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Lord of Bones, Mazen Elsarag. Thank you for videos, Dr. Heisenberg, and the Ding fan for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of this incredible tournament. Round 8 hits tomorrow, and you know, pretty much everything else that happens in the chess world, I will try to cover it. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.